So today it's not about so much making rings, it's about inlaying rings. We've done a demo on making the rings, but now we're going to talk about what you can do with inlay and how hard or how or easy it could be. And unfortunately, I've got these little things to show, so I'll pass them around. This is a regular wooden ring with a little blue striping there. That was the inlay. Since I'm an ex-police officer, thin blue line. So this is an example of an inlay on a wooden ring. Now, I had to make the ring, so I had to use a lathe for that. And the lathe made it much, much easier. But we have had a lot of people that have wanted to make ring inlays or inlaid rings that don't have a lathe. So what Woodcraft has done is they have these two blanks that are pre-turned. This one's made out of a ceramic. This one's made of the bingo, if I remember correctly. So this is wood, that's a ceramic, and it's already turned. So the only thing that you have to do is put the inlay in it. And we can go as wild and crazy or as simple as we want with these inlays. The three basic materials we use for an inlay is a polymer clay, epoxy, or superglue. And how these fit is a little bit different for everyone. This one was done with epoxy. And here you can see I've got the epoxy band, and it's got a metal metallic powder that I put into the band. So to make that, basically what I did is I mixed up this epoxy, equal amounts, got my little stir stick, stirred it up, and I took this bright blue powder that's designed to be put into epoxy in all types of glue. Took my high dollar measuring stick, 3 big scoops, stirred it up, and then once I stir it up, it moves, it pours. Even though I made it a lot thicker by putting the powder in, it still pours. And I kind of count on that because I took this and I poured it into this. This is an epoxy syringe. This is what they look like without epoxy. And all you do is take off this little tip. Now, if you're putting a regular glue in here, it won't set because you can tighten the end up and then keep the air out. Epoxy is going to set regardless of what you do, so this is a one-time shot with epoxy. But basically, this comes off. You screw this in here. You take the tip off. Take this out. Now you're going to take what you've mixed up here and pour it in like this, okay? Once you get a good blob of it, this is important. Put this in, flip it right up. Let the epoxy start to drain this way. And as you push up here, eventually you're going to get to this stage. What you want to do with this is you want to lay the epoxy right in here, and this makes it very easy. You just go back and forth, gentle pressure, and you'll fill this up, and it won't be sloppy, it won't pour over the edges. What you will have, though, is it's going to... So you need some way to hold this and turn it. It's a 15-minute epoxy, and the 15 minutes starts when I start to stir it. So what I'll do is I'll take my time. I'll stir it really good, get a good 5-minute stir, put the blue powder in, give it another good stir. So I've got about 5 minutes left before it starts to gel. 5 minutes is what I will use this for. I'll take shoulders. If I do have a lathe, what you would do is you would put this and it just holds it really nice. Now, you don't need a lathe. If you do it this way, you need a lathe to hold it. But if you didn't have one, what you would do is you could still buy this. This nut right here, and you put 2 wrenches, loosen this. This will slide in and out. So you can slide this all the way down so that it looks like this. This is another. I like this one. Go on my lathe, but I can stand it up. And I can hold it like this, and I can turn it. Basically what I do is the blank. And now I can just take this and just go back and forth as I turn it. Does a good job. Now I've probably got about 2 minutes left before it starts to harden. So for about 2 minutes, I just do this, about this fast. And that lets it set, and it sets just like you saw this ring here. Nice little bunch. Now, once it dries, I'm done. Or if I want to, back in the lathe and take a turning tool, if I'm using a lathe, and make it flush with the rest of the ring. But you can see that you really don't need to do that if you want to. So this works extremely well. So now we come to the other one. This is ceramic. This is wood, baked in an oven. Wood will start to combust about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to heat this particular clay to about 275. So it won't hurt wood at all. Ceramic. So polymer clay is a wonderful stuff. This is it. Comes in packages like this. It's oil-based. It doesn't dry out. It will stay flexible a long time. And here I've taken the maroon and orange from Virginia Tech and just made a little clay sandwich with it. You're going to want something like this. This is basically a pasta maker for clay. And you're going to hook this up and put this in and just helps with the mixing. Now, why do we do that? Well, because we have this nice thick ribbon. And what we do is we're going to take our little ceramic piece, wherever I put it this time. Here it is. And I'll just make a mark. And basically that tells me where the edges are. Then you take your cutter, and you can get this at all these little craft stores. There we go. Now we take our ring, lay this in here, and just wrap it around. And we'll probably put 2 layers on here. You got your keys? welcome. So basically just keep, it's a very easy clay to mold. And you just want to make sure it's in the trough really well. And I always like to roll it on something that's not sticky. Now, is it mission critical? Extra off? Nope. Because whatever we leave on here, if it's poking out too much, we can always sand off afterwards. We hardened it. And if you like messy fingers, this is the way to go. And the more you work this, the more elastic it gets, the more supple it gets. Basically what you're looking for, something just about like this. And you can see this is not the flattest, it's bumpy on purpose, a little bit proud, because you're into this, then you could take the extra stuff and noodle it back into a ball and keep on using it. It's a nice part about this stuff. It won't dry out. I keep them in a little plastic baggie, but you really don't need it. The stuff is amazing. Nope, stays just like it is. It does really good. This particular clay, it's $275 for 15 minutes. And then when it comes out, you again, you can sand it by hand, or if you do have a lathe, you can put it on the lathe and sand it that way. And this has got, I put a coat of finish on this.
What do you sand it with? Which grit?
I sanded this, I started at 320 and I went to 600. And then I put the, I used the acrylic finish. It's not a polyurethane, it's an acrylic. It's called Bright Tones. It's used for instruments. Put that on, let it dry, and then after it's dry, I put a little Festool polishing compound on it and a little piece of cloth, spun in the lathe to get a nice polish, and this is what you get. So the nice part about that basically it's a ceramic core with now a ceramic inlay. So that will hold the test of time very well. The nice part about this stuff is you really don't need a full-blown lathe to do it. Now, a lathe's going to make it easier, but you don't need it, especially with the ceramic. The only thing I don't like about this is that right now, the smallest size we have is 9. It goes from a ring size 9 to like a 14. We're trying to get them in a smaller size, and if we find that, and if we get that in, we'll let you all know. The smaller size is pretty good. So we talked about 2 ways to do inlays. One that you've seen here, one I don't have an example of, but again, we use the clay, we use the epoxy with the powder stuff in here. And then there's this. This we sell for $20. It's not a whole lot of stuff in there, but those are pieces of opal, and they're blue. You can get different colors. We sell different colors, but there's not a lot in there. So what we're going to do with this. So this one, you need a lathe for. And why you need it is because we're going to take, put one of these. Let's use this. You're going to put your blank in your mandrel. You're going to put your blank in your mandrel, and you're either going to use something like this, which is a gel epoxy, 5 minutes, and they really don't mean 6. This is good, however, you're really rushing yourself. Use is this. This is a gel CA glue. Okay? What I'll do with this is I will take this CA glue and I will put a little piece about yay far on this. And then I'll have a piece of paper and a paper plate. The paper plate is underneath, it's sitting on the lathe, underneath the headstock. And the little piece of paper I've got folded in half, and I take this pretty stuff and I put it on the piece of paper. And then I take it ever so gently and I drop those opals right in here into where the glue is. Okay? Fill it up. Push it down if you want to. Then I'll take a can of the instant dry, squirt it, roll it this way, do the same thing. Because you're using a gel, nothing's going to drip. Because you're freezing it with that, it's going to work well. And just keep working around. I found out that because the gel holds so well, I didn't have to use the accelerator until the end. It held everything in place really well. Just tap it good. Eventually you're going to want to use the accelerator. At this point, once that's done, you start to turn this. You could use carbide, which I would recommend because this stone is really hard. Use a little carbide tool and work it down. Take your time, not big cuts at all. And what you're going to see when you get it down kind of even, you're going to see gaps. Okay? Do one of two things. You can take your liquid CA again and fill the gaps, squirt it, turn those down, and everything is smooth. Or you can put more stone in, put your liquid CA in there, put a little bit more stone in there, fill up the holes. Instant dry it, take it to the lathe, and eventually you're going to get all the holes are filled up, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. This makes it, pardon?
How fast are you spinning your lathe?
If I'm going to turn, I'm doing the lathe about 600 RPM. If I've got a lathe and I'm putting this down, what I'll do instead of hand, I'll turn the lathe to the lowest my lathe will go is 130. At 130, it's perfect. It's just a slow turn like that. Keeps everything from dripping, and actually it puts everything in the middle. So if you look down here, you can see that nice little round raised middle all the way around. It's because it's in the lathe turning as slow as I can get that lathe to turn, and it does a very, very good job. I don't need it to do these, but having it makes it a little bit easier. But this is the inlay, the 3 best ways I found to do an inlay. Now, you have to think of your rings too. These inlay rings, oh, that's the one that's sticky. No, that's the one that's sticky. These inlay rings are pretty wide. These blanks here are a little bit thinner. This is the regular size blank that we sell, the 8mm. We sell an 8 1/4 or 6 1/4. Might be 6. Anyway, the bigger the ring, the easier it is to do inlay. We're going downhill. When you get into ladies' rings, it's going to be much more difficult. That's a 4mm ring. Ladies' ring, what you really need to do is put the wood on first, and then using the tip of a ski chisel, just in the middle as best you can, just a light little ring, just a little depression. You can't go too far, otherwise you'll split it in half. But just a little depression, and then what you do that, then you can put an epoxy in there, or something like this in there, slather it. So you want to make the ring just a little finished, but not much, because you're going to turn everything down flush. So you know you're going to lose some wood, but that does a good job. In fact, if you do it that way, because your hole is like this, where you've got the epoxy, you can take it down, you can vary the thickness of the line by how much wood you take off. And you're going to blow up some rings, that's okay. This particular core had a ring on it one time, and the chip came off of it, so you just take it and take the carbide tool all the way down to the steel. It takes the epoxy off, everything off, and now I've got to use the core again. So you really can't hurt cores.
That's titanium.
I believe so. I think it is. I think it's a titanium core. It's very, very light. It's much lighter than steel. And it's not aluminum, because when I took the cutting tool to it to get the old glue off, this didn't flinch at all, so it's probably titanium. But to do all this stuff, basically, first you need, and if you're going to start and you don't have a lathe, I would really highly recommend this. Unfortunately, it starts at size 9. If you're going to turn it, so you have to have a lathe, you can do anything. But if you know you want to put an inlay in, get the widest band that you can. Try to stay away from the 4mm. Go with the 6, which will be the next size up, something about, well, this size. This is the next size up. And it looks double, so this is probably an 8. 8mm, 4mm. I know this is 4. You also want to turn a ring holder like that. This way you put it next to someplace you wash your hands, you throw your ring in there, wash your hands, and we'll come back a couple days later and say, oh yeah, there's my ring. Any questions?